Infinite Earths Part 1, or as I like to call it, Barry Allen, This Is Your Life. And it's your boy Icon with another DC animated movie review for you. And this, it took me a while to watch this one. I was finally able to find a platform that I was able to view it on. And once I viewed it, I'm gonna be honest. In the beginning, I was like, "What the hell is, is happening?" So there are multiple stories that take place here, like a lot of stories that take place here, but they all involve Barry Allen. So it's gonna be it's gonna be very confusing for me to try to talk about all of them at the same time. So I'm basically just gonna talk about each individual, story like one by one. So the premise of it, because when the movie starts, it shows Barry Allen running through the Speed Force, and because it was Crisis on Infinite Earths and he was running through the Speed Force, I thought this was the Barry Allen from Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. At the end of that movie, Constantine told him, he said, you got to go back in time and reset everything to give us a fighting chance. And then Barry ran back in time, then he disappeared. And then a matter wave came over, and then it reset the universe. That's what I thought. I thought that's what that Barry was. I thought that was the Barry running to reset time. But it wasn't. It was the Barry Allen from this particular movie. And when he pops up, he's at the beginning. He ends up, well, they end up showing us a scene where he becomes the Flash for the first time after he got struck by lightning. Then he sees somebody staring off into the shadows, and then he's just like, who are you? And then it takes us on the journey of Barry Allen's life. Now, throughout this entire film, we see Barry Allen in the past, Barry Allen in the present, Barry Allen in the future. We see different types of Barry Allens. There's one particular Barry Allen that we see, and that Barry is like time hopping into the body of different versions of him throughout time. So we're basically just going all over the place. Like, he's popping up when he first met Iris. He's popping up when he first met the Justice League. It shows you how the two of them first met. After Barry got struck by lightning, he went to a coffee shop to have lunch because now his metabolism sped up and now he's hungry. He meets Iris. It's Black Iris. She works at the restaurant. The two of them meet and they get to know each other. Then it shows us a scene where they're dating, and then they're talking about their wedding, and then while they're talking about their wedding, then it gets to their wedding day, and then when we get to their wedding day, it shows a scene where Barry went to go talk to Iris because he said that because mind you now, this is future Barry in the body of the Barry who's about to get married. So he remembers like all the past, present, and future shit. So he's saying, he was just like, Iris, he said, today's our wedding day. It's the best day of my life. But he was like, something's supposed to happen. He said, I remember that something's supposed to happen today. And then that's when Iris said, she was like, are you time slipping again? Because she knows he can slip in and out of time through different versions of himself. And then he was just like, yeah. He said that something's supposed to happen today. He's like, it's nothing bad, but it's our wedding day and something's supposed to happen. Another version of his past that that he was able to go into was when he met the Justice League for the first time, where he was fighting Amazo in Central City, and Amazo, because Amazo can copy. Well, Amazo is known for copying powers. This Amazo was actually like sucking the metahuman power out of Barry. And then while Barry was being defeated by Amazo, the Superman showed up. And then Amazo ended up sucking the energy from Superman. So then Barry ended up picking up Superman and put him in the car. And then the Green Arrow showed up to try to help them. And then he got them in his car. And then Superman told the two of them to drive him to Bruce's house. So Barry Allen and Oliver Queen brought Superman to Wayne Manor, and then that's when we meet Bruce Wayne for the first time. And then we meet Bruce Wayne, we found out that they actually don't know each other, but Bruce knows who Oliver Queen is, he knows who Barry Allen is, and then he brought Superman into the house. So, he was able to help Superman recover. They were doing some stuff on Amazo, and then after they did their stuff on Amazo, then, they went upstairs to have a conversation. So now Batman, Superman, Flash, and Oliver Queen, they're talking about how they can stop Amazo, and what are they going to do. There was another Flash scene where Flash went to a moment in time where he met Bruce for the first time. Well, not so much for the first time, but I guess it was like after he met Bruce, and when he was talking, like it was like a little bit later. And then while he was talking to Bruce, Bruce had brought in Dick Grayson for the first time because that's when Dick's parents had died. And then, and then Barry was just like, oh, he's like, my nephew Wally, he's downstairs in the basement. Do you want to go meet him? And then Dick went downstairs, and that's how he met Wally. Wally also black. And then Bruce and, Flash were having a conversation because Bruce went to Barry to tell Barry, to ask Barry information about a Central City orphanage, Barry was telling Bruce, you should take the kid in because you can be a good father figure to him, you can be a mentor to him. But Bruce wasn't having it. He was like, I don't want to take on no children. So on this earth, Bruce actually does not take Dick Grayson in, and he sends him to a Central City orphanage, or at least that was the plan. So then, all right, so now we're back. So we're fighting Amazo. And then that's when, Barry, he gets the thing. He was just like, oh, he said, all of us, we can form a team of superheroes, so we can help take down this Amazo robot. And then everybody was like, well, that's a dumb idea. And then Batman was like, yes, it is a dumb idea, but he thinks it could work. So he was like, let's try to recruit some heroes and try to form a Justice League. And surprisingly, instead of the first person that they going after, because right now we've got Superman, Batman, Flash, and Green Arrow on the team. Like, you would think that the first person they went after was Wonder Woman. The first person they recruited to the team was Vixen. And I ain't mad at that, but I was legitimately shocked. Then they recruited the Martian Manhunter. They tried to recruit Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and he told them to kick rocks. So they were recruiting different people. They recruited John Jones. They got John Jones on the team. So now the Justice League is formed. Bruce purchased the Hall of Justice, and they did a whole press conference announcing to the world that the Justice League is a thing, and we're here to save the day. And, they credited Barry Allen for giving the idea of bringing the whole team together. And then while they're having this, this ceremony saying that the Justice League is here and we're here to save the day, the Amazo robot showed up and attacked all the people. Now we get an Amazo backstory. The thing with the Amazo, Professor Ivo was dying. He's also black. Professor Ivo was dying of an extremely rare disease that accelerates his aging. Lex Luthor convinced him to try to create the Amazo robot so he can siphon the power of metahumans and give the power to himself to regenerate him and save his life. So the primary purpose of the Amazo robot was to collect energy to save Dr. Ivo. Lex Luthor threw Dr. Ivo in a containment cell, and he corrupted the Amazo's programming to siphon the energy from metahumans for himself because he was trying to kill Superman and everything. So now Lex Luthor and Amazo, they're attacking the Justice League and they whooping their ass. Amazo's taking everyone's power away from them. And then that's when Barry got the idea. He said, in order for us to stop Amazo, we got to go get Ivo. So when Barry tried to go find Dr. Ivo, he ended up time jumping again. And then we ended up going to a different scene where he ended up on the planet where the Ultramen are. Like, you ever saw the Justice League Crisis on Two Different Earths movie? We saw an Earth where the Justice League, basically the crime syndicate, where the Justice League were basically the bad guys and they were taking over the world. The Flash was on that Earth. He wound up on that Earth and he was interacting with the crime syndicate. The crime syndicate was trying to kill him, and then they were telling him, they were just like, yeah, we exist, we rule this planet, this is our planet, whatever. Then Barry was like, how can you do this? And then eventually he ended up time jumping again, and then he found Professor Ivo. When he found Professor Ivo, he brought Professor Ivo back to Amazo. And then Professor Ivo talked Amazo down, and he said, this is not why you were created. You weren't created to harm people. You were created to help people. And then he was just like, oh, but Lex told me. He's like, no, Lex lied to you. And then he said, your primary function is to save me, is to give me the metahuman energy. So he said, give me the metahuman energy that you required. So then Amazo tried to give Ivo the energy, and it killed him. Ivo died, and then when Ivo died, that's when Amazo realized that Lex had lied to him this entire time. Bruce had even deduced that Lex was the one that gave Ivo the disease to begin with to force him to create the robot. So then Amazo destroyed Lex Luthor's robot because he had the Lexo suit. He destroyed the Lexo suit, and then, he basically was just like, I failed my father, I failed Professor Ivo. And then, then Amazo, he shut himself off. They took Lex Luthor to jail, and then they were just like, so the whole Justice League thing was destroyed, should we still do this? And then the Flash was like, of course we should still do this. We should still be the Justice League. And then Batman agreed. He said, yeah, we should still be the Justice League regardless. He said, besides, I done already bought the goddamn building. So, so now, throughout all these different time jumps, one thing that was happening in every single time jump, regardless if Barry was on the Earth with the crime syndicate, regardless if he was in his past, regardless if he was in his present, in his future, etc., there was always this one homeless person that was in every single place that Barry was. And he kept trying to tell Barry, save the world, you got to save the world, you got to save the world, you got to save the world. And the whole time everybody's like, yo, who's this homeless guy? Like, even the crime syndicate, where the homeless guy showed up in the crime syndicate's headquarters, and they were just like, oh, here comes this old homeless guy again that keeps talking about the end of the world. This person was basically trying to warn them about the crisis that was coming, but he didn't listen. And he was the one responsible for Barry's time jumping, because he kept touching Barry's head, and then Barry kept popping in different moments in time. So then finally, then we get a string of scenes with an old Barry and an old Iris waking up, having a life together, talking about the work that needs to be done, and they're trying to save the world, and it was just this whole thing. It was basically, it just showed us into their future, but both of them were like really old, like basically like in their 70s. Then it takes us another time jump. It takes us to Barry and Iris's wedding. So while Barry and Iris are at their wedding and they're getting ready to get married, then Harbinger shows up, and now we're getting into the crisis stuff. So the Harbinger shows up, and then when Harbinger shows up, she's just like, Barry Allen, you've been chosen, as one of the saviors of the world. And then Iris was just like, well, why does it just have to be Barry? She's like, we got Green Lantern, we got we got all these other heroes right here. So the Harbinger was like, all right, fine, I'm gonna take everybody. We found out at the end that before she took everybody, Barry and Iris actually got married first. They had a reception and everything where everybody got to celebrate them. So at least that was nice. He actually got to have his wedding before he got recruited to save the entire galaxy. So so then Harbinger brings him to the Watchtower. We're going to assume it's the Watchtower. And then when she brings him to the Watchtower, they basically have every single hero from every single Earth that ever existed. It was like all of them. It was like young Superman. It was old Superman. There was Batgirl in the background. Robin was there. And Dick Grayson Robin, he bumped into Batman, the Batman that we've been seeing so far. And then when he bumped in, because everybody that was there, they were all pulled from different Earths. And then when Robin walked up to Batman, he was like, Bruce, it's you. And the Batman was like, who the fuck are you? And he was like, me, Dick Grayson, Robin. He was just like, how do we know each other? He said, well, after my parents died, you took me in, you trained me, you made me your partner. And then he was just like, oh shit. He was like, yeah. He was like, no, you and I saved a lot of lives together. So now he's kind of like, damn, like maybe I should have kept the kid when I had the chance. And then he introduced him to the Huntress, who was the daughter of both Bruce and Selena Kyle, and then Selena Kyle, and the daughter, the Huntress, she even said that their Bruce, I guess, had died, but she was just like, but mom, loved you or whatever. So now Batman's fucked because he's just like, yo, like I have a daughter and I actually raised this punk, so now he's regretting the decisions that he made, the first time. We found out that the older Superman is currently dating Wonder Woman because he did marry Lois Lane, and his Lois Lane died because they both just got old, and he decided to die. He decided to be with Diana because Diana's immortal and Diana's not going to die on him. But the problem with that is he's eventually going to die. Dr. Light, showed up. She was there. I was going to say, not Mr. Fantastic, the guy from Apocalypse that's the master of Escape. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's the one that's like dating Big Barda. Like he was there. There was all a bunch of like The Question was there. Like everybody was there. And then even like Heroes from the Future was there. And I'm just like, because then when one of the Heroes from the Future showed up, then she was talking to Harbinger, and then when she was talking to Harbinger, we found out that Harbinger is actually Supergirl. Because in the DC universe, in the Arrowverse, it was Lila Diggle, but here it was Supergirl. And when I'm looking at the Supergirl, and then she was just like, oh, can we get the rest of the Legion? And then they were like, no, that can't happen. I was like, is this the Supergirl from the Supergirl Legion of Superheroes film? Because it was drawn the same way. And even that movie had a cliffhanger because at the end, Batman and Superman just like magically disappeared and we never found out what happened to them. Even on Justice League Warworld, where the three of them disappeared. See, now I got to go back and watch Justice League Warworld because were those three recruited? Is that a tie-in to this, to this crisis? I got to find out because before Crisis, like the last 2 or 3 Justice League, like DC animated films had weird endings. And you now wonder, are those endings tied into this crisis? But anyway, so then the Monitor shows up and he's just like, I brought you all together to help save the world. He was like, the world's greatest minds, you know what I'm saying? Like the world's greatest heroes. So he's like, let's come together and try to figure out how we can stop this anti-wave matter. And then the Question comes out and he's like, oh, I call bullshit because how do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know this whole like anti-wave thing is real? And then that's when Barry was like, it is real because I was on an Earth where their Earth got destroyed. And then he got teleported back to the crime syndicate scene where he was with the crime syndicate when their Earth actually was destroyed and their Earth actually disappeared. Like all of them died or whatever. And it's fucked up that the Harbinger didn't try to recruit any of them to save the world. But then Barry was just like, the whole thing is true. And then they asked him, they were just like, well, how are you able to see that? How are you able to go to that other Earth to see that whole situation? And then he said, I can vibrate my molecules to pass through space and time. So this way the effects of certain things don't bother me. They just go right through me. And then that's when all the eggheads got the idea. They were just like, shit, if we build if we build a tower, which basically they're just like, if we build a giant tuning fork and use the power of that tuning fork to vibrate the earth, we can get the antimatter wave to pass right through us and we can all be spared. So they all start building this tower so they can prevent the antimatter wave from coming. Now, while they're doing all this, we get another flashback of the 70-year-old Iris and Barry that are talking to Amazo, because Amazo survived, whatever. They're talking to Amazo about building this machine and whether or not the machine will work. So they're trying to put all the final pieces together, and then old Barry and old Iris, they're just like, hey, it's time for us to go put the final pieces on this thing and save the world once and for all. So then it cuts back to present time, where the Justice League, like all the heroes that came together for Crisis, they're building this machine, this giant tuning fork. And right before, they didn't get a chance to finish it yet, because they were just like, they like, for example, if the Monitor said we have 2 weeks before the antimatter wave shows up, they're building the machine, and they've only been at it for about a week. And then all of a sudden the antimatter wave, like the Crisis wave, shows up, and they're just like, how is the wave here? Because we thought we had time. And then Batman was like, that means that the anti-wave was hip to what we were doing. It knew we were trying to stop it, so it sped up its times table to try to prevent us from stopping it. And then that's when the Monitor was just like, he was like, no, he was like, it doesn't have like a mind, like it's not like an organic thinking being. And then Batman was like, well, it thought about something, because that motherfucker's here. So now they was just like, we're about 20 minutes away from the wave hitting everything. People were scared. People were running for their lives. And then just then Iris was doing a report. She was saying that the wave is here, everybody. Run for your life, grab your loved ones, be with the people that you love. And then Barry, and then the homeless guy showed up again. And then he told Barry, he was like, go to Iris. So he goes to Iris. And then when he goes to Iris, he grabs Iris. And then right before the anti-monitor wave hit them, Barry basically put them in Flash time. And if you've watched the Flash TV show, Flash time is basically when Barry vibrates his molecule, he vibrates his body so quickly, he's moving so fast that everything else around him is going super slow. So now the city is here, everybody's here, all the people are here. The wave is here, the wave is coming. When Barry goes into Flash time, he basically hit the pause button, which for them, everybody else, they still think this is happening in real time, but in Flash time, Barry's going so fast, to him everything is just on pause. And he brought Iris in there with him, because the problem was they didn't have enough time to finish the tuning fork before the wave showed up. So this was the part that actually blew my mind. Barry and Iris were just like, well, now that we're in Flash time, and now that the wave has been paused, and the people have been paused, and we're basically on pause, and you and I are in Flash time, they were like, the two of them said, it's up to me and you to finish the weapon, finish the tuning fork, and save humanity. So in order for them to do that, I guess he went and got the Amazo head and brought the Amazo head back to, back online so he can help them as far as putting the machine together. Basically, from that point on, Barry and Iris lived a 40-year, because you got to assume they were in their 20s or something when this happened. They were damn near 60 now. Barry and Iris basically lived 40 years of marriage in Flash time. They lived an entire life in Flash time. And while they were in Flash time, the two of them, along with Amazo, they were finishing the machine, because the Justice League were just like, oh, the wave is here, and we didn't get a chance to finish the machine. The two of them by themselves, along with Amazo's help, finished the machine in Flash time. And I was like, damn. You would have thought that within all that time they would have had kids or some shit, and their kids would have been helping them put the machine together. But they lived in Flash time. And I was like, that was actually pretty dope. It reminded me of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where in the series finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we found out that Fitzsimmons basically went into outer space and lived an entire life in outer space. They lived a whole life in outer space, and then they came back in time and tried to save their friends and the thing. And then when they came back, they're just, where the fuck did y'all get a kid from? But but that's what happened. They did it, and then while they were putting the finishing touches on the machine, unfortunately, Iris died. Because, like I said, she old. So, Iris died, and then Barry finished the machine. he got into it because Amazo said that you got to run on the cosmic treadmill in order to power the machine. So Barry ran on the treadmill, he powered it up, and then once he started running on the treadmill, he released the flash time. So now Barry's out of flash because again, Barry and Iris lived a 40-year marriage in flash time, but for everyone else who was in the present when the wave was coming, Barry and Iris's 40 minutes to them were 40 seconds. Because as soon as Barry released the flash time, everybody was like, oh, here comes the anti-monitor wave and everything. But then what Barry did, it worked. He ended up powering the machine. The machine vibrated the universe or the earth or whatever. The wave passed right through, and it didn't destroy them, and they ended up saving the entire universe, the multiverse, and the galaxy. So now everybody, and they have, and the crazy shit is they have no idea why. Because when the machine worked, everybody was just like, oh, the machine is operational. The Superman was like, how the fuck is it operational? Like, we didn't do that. like we never finished it. So nobody even knows that Barry and Iris saved the universe. But they saved the universe. You know, everything goes back to normal. Everybody's happy now. You know, like everybody's happy now. And Barry, he was just like laying on the floor, you know, because he old, and then he was just like, did we do it? You know, and then surprisingly, that's when the Spectre showed up, and then the Spectre was just like, well, Barry, what you did was a good thing, but he was just like, I'm here to take you, but the Speed Force still has a hold on you, so the Speed Force is going to let you do something. I didn't understand what the hell he was talking about, but basically it was almost like the Speed Force was either giving him a penance or giving him a present. And what the Speed Force did was it took him, and I don't know why this happened. The Speed Force took that old-ass Barry and brought him to the beginning of when he first became the Flash, and then he brought him to the very beginning of like time where there were like two cavemen there, and then he kept telling, and then when old Barry saw the two cavemen, there was one caveman that was standing up and another one that was in chains. He was yelling at the one that was in chains. He was like, go back to the beginning, go back to where it all started. So now I'm like, is the caveman who was in chains, is that the homeless guy? Like, was that the homeless guy who was spread out throughout this entire film? Because he kind of looked like him. At one point, I thought maybe the homeless guy was like an old-ass Barry Allen that just, I don't know. I was very confused about that. But then that was weird. Like, that whole thing was weird. And that's it. But then that's when they showed the scene where Barry and Iris had their wedding or whatever. But then in the end, it takes us back to the Watchtower. Supergirl is talking to one of her Legion of Superhero people. And then she called Brainy from the future. And then the girl from the future, she started disappearing. And then Brainiac 5 started disappearing. And then Brainiac 5 was like, Kara, something happened that's erasing the future. Like, something's erasing the future. So we're now in a weird place where we've saved the present. You know, and that's also weird because since Barry and Iris basically lived in Flash time, when the smoke clears and everybody's like, yay, the world is saved, at some point somebody's gonna be like, hey, what happened to Barry? You know, because Barry didn't get a reset for that. Like, Barry's still old, so Barry's gone. Like, he's gone from this adaptation of the Justice League, which is crazy. But now something's wrong with the future to where everybody in the future got erased because something in the past changed that erased the future. But that had nothing to do with the homeless guy. That had nothing to do with why old ass Barry was being catapulted through time. And if it does, we didn't get into the inclinations of it. So I'm confused. But I guess this is why we're going to get a part 2, because I guess in part 1, we were saving the present. And now in part 2, we're supposed to save the future with the Legion. And that homeless caveman, the homeless guy, the caveman, and old-ass Barry are going to be the catalyst. Who knows? All three of them might be the same person. But they're going to be the catalyst of what happens in the future. Maybe old Barry telling the caveman to go back to the beginning. He changed something that fucked up the future. I don't know. It's very confusing. All I know is Barry and Iris saved the galaxy. That's how it ended. And thank you for tuning in. So this was good. Like, it was good. It definitely, it keeps your mind twisted. It keeps your mind turned. Like, you definitely have to pay attention to what's happening here. But you got to, like, every scene is important because it means something in the end. Like, everybody got redemption. Like, even Amazo got redemption. But we're at a place now where the present has been saved. The present has been preserved. But something happened in the future. And like we know, every time something gets messed up, it's always Barry's fault. Like, Barry, what did you do this time? But share your questions, comments, and or concerns down below. Let me know what you thought about Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. There is a trailer out for Part 2. I haven't watched it yet. I guess I should now. And we'll continue to talk about, let's talk about this. And then when Part 2 comes, we'll review that. And we'll talk about that too to see if we can put the pieces together and try to bring all this shit in. So they didn't bring in Like, I mean, aside, they did. I mean, the drawing style stayed the same, but they did bring in the crime syndicate. I guess that was the Legion of Superheroes, Supergirl. I don't know, but we're gonna see what happens. So share your questions, comments, and concerns down below, and we'll continue to talk about it. Check me out on Instagram and on Twitter. Hit the like button, the notification bell, so you get notified when my other videos pop up. Because I got my He-Man, Masters of the Universe, Revolution on my YouTube channel, and I got some other stuff as well as we roll on for more superhero goodness. So that was it, guys. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, and now that the Flash is back, I can do this, guys. Take care, Disrupted.